Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Wisdom Wednesday, Wake Up with the Consciousness Cafe. My name is Lisa Ferraro. I'm the founder and spiritual director of SoulCall Ministries. Thanks for joining us this morning. My very special guest this morning is a friend I've not seen in too many years, but so grateful to have her wisdom being shared with us this morning. Welcome, Ceci Zuniga, joining us from Houston, Texas.
Good morning, everybody. Glad to be here.
Yeah. So I was thinking of ways to introduce you. You are a woman who has continued to evolve in spiritual consciousness. The brilliance of your mind is taking shape in various different forms. Is this your second book?
This is my third book.
Your third book. See what I mean? Third book. And this is one of the newer ones. I just got this. I haven't had a chance to read it yet, but I cannot wait.
Yeah.
And some people will be surprised to know that you're also you have a doctorate in educational psychology. You are a self-love guide and empowerment coach. Right now, you're predominantly working with a female client base. Tell us a little bit about that and your journey to your soul's calling and the evolution of your consciousness.
Yeah. So a few years ago, maybe 3 years ago now, while I was meditating, I'm a regular meditator. I do Kundalini yoga every day and have for 20 years now. But I was in my meditation, and it became really clear to me that it was important at this particular moment in time and history of humanity to focus on empowering women. Mm-hmm. And we've seen this wave shifting for more than the last 3 years, but it's really picking up steam right now. And whereas I did work with some male clients for years before that, I just really felt that to fully align with my soul's calling at this particular time was to focus exclusively on women. So I have really enjoyed that shift. I primarily work with women who are dealing with the aftermath of a breakup, because that tends to be a hard place for many women, and their lives change in big, powerful ways. They may lose their home, or their finances shift dramatically, aside from losing their beloved. Mm-hmm. And it really doesn't matter whose decision that was. It's a difficult transition to make. So I focus on that group of women. More recently, I've just participated in a challenge group of women who were working on body love and weight and self-love. Mm-hmm. So any women that are looking for support during a challenge, I work with them. Everybody that I work with is very ready to make a change in their life. So those are the clients I tend to work with. And really, I mean, I'm nothing against men. I have some great and wonderful men in my life. But for this particular work that I do, I feel like it's a time in our history to really help women who have been disempowered for so long to reclaim that, to bring balance into our world right now, because we're suffering for the lack of balance.
Yeah, looking at this global pandemic, which continues to affect so many of the things that we do as a culture and as a human race in connection, with each other. Some of the things that you're working on is women making that sacred connection to self, shamanic practices as well. You lead. When you hear a word like that, if for some of our listeners who aren't exactly clear with what that means, what the heck does that mean? Should we be scared of that? Some people are terrified of, what are we talking about now?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. So let me start by saying I am not a traditionally trained shaman, some people say, because I didn't grow up in a shamanic based community with an elder that tutored me my whole life, which is typically where shaman are born and bred. So my route to shamanic practice was to study with teachers that I did have access to here in the United States. And there are some fantastic ones. So I do not call myself a shaman. I call myself a shamanic practitioner. Okay. I learned a set of tools and techniques that are now a part of my toolbox. And here's what I'll say about this work and what drew me to it. Actually, what drew me to it was my own journey through a very difficult situation that I turned to a shamanic healer to help me through. And it was just so eye-opening and such a powerful experience for me that then I went on to get trained so that I could do something similar. Since that training, I have had some guidance, some soul guidance. So I use a specific technique that's kind of my own version of things. And what I find is the power of it is that instead of just working with our thoughts or even just our feelings, we actually trace back to the place in the being where an obstacle was set. So where it was very first seeded into our experience, because from that point forward, our behavior is guided in to some degree by this event that was seeded into our being. So from a shamanic perspective, we can work with time in a circular fashion instead of a linear fashion. So we can actually jump into the future and do work, and we can jump back to the past and do work, even to past lives and do work. And by work, I mean healing. So we can go back to where the original event took place and do some specific work there to bring that event to the place of highest truth, because often what happens is we're holding it with a lot of distortion around it. What we believe that it meant is actually not the truth of what it was.
Right.
So we bring it to truth, and then we sweep the rest of the lifeline up to where you are today with this truth, and everything changes.
Yeah.
So
I get the image of like, if you're decorating a cake, do you ever decorate a cake?
Yes.
I think of everything in terms of sweets and food. I mean, it's just, but when you put all the icing in that cake decorating bag, and then you choose for the tip what you want to squeeze through it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if this event happened back here, it's almost your whole life is going to be squeezed through that mold. It's going to have that imprint on it in one way or another, is what you're saying. And this is just helping us to change the tip or remove it completely and just not be affected by it. And another way, I know in psychology, they say the things that fire together, wire together,
Mm-hmm.
you know, so these are just, I'm just giving people like practical applications for this
Sure.
really powerful truth you're laying out here. And it's found in a lot of Eastern philosophies too.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like the energies of the elders from different continents, ours included, had this wisdom kind of been teased out of the culture.
Mm-hmm.
And ours is to bring it back. It sounds like you're really taking some big steps to bring this awareness, first of all, and then the participation. When you want to go into a practice like that with your coaching clients,
Mm-hmm.
what's the level of receptivity like?
It varies.
Yeah.
And that's one of the first conversations I have with a potential client is, what's your experience in this arena? How much energy work have you participated in? Or what's your understanding of this style of work? And if they're not open to that, there's a lot of other things we can do.
Yeah.
So I'll have a conversation with them to describe a little bit what that work is about, where it comes from, why I feel like it's so powerful. And it actually, we aren't actually able to go back and change the event itself, but what changes is how we relate to that event.
Uh-huh.
And because of that, then how we relate to every future event also shifts. So it's just when they understand that, and they understand that the struggle that they've been carrying today actually started way back when, and unmistakably, every time I'm in that conversation with the client, we can identify the event that happened before, typically before age 8. Wow. And they'll go, wow, I forgot all about that. Didn't think it meant anything. And then that's key to shifting the reality today.
Yeah. How exciting is it to be able to talk and actually work with the idea of we can go forward and set something up? I know I have friends who will say, when amazing things happen, they'll say, oh, you were all prayed ahead. I do get for sure that there is no such thing as linear time. It's just an easy construct for the logical mind to follow things. It keeps us showing up on time. We were able to get together today at this, prescribed time.
Right.
But like moving ahead to, it's not like fortune telling.
No.
What's the difference?
The difference is it's intentional seeding.
Okay.
So I hate to use the word manifesting, because manifesting has all kinds of stickiness attached to it. But when we're talking about life, mm-hmm. there's no difference between the spark of life force energy that animates us and that we are, and any other spark of life that's out in this universe. It's all from the same source. Mm-hmm. So we create separation from that in our own mind with our thoughts. But when we realize that we can dream into being anything we choose, because it's a feeling, it's a frequency that we're creating, then once we set that frequency, then we start drawing things that align with that frequency to us, and anything that doesn't align with that frequency starts to shed. I mean, we're seeing that in the macrocosmic level in our culture right now.
Right.
We're going through these transitions, and the things that aren't aligning with where we're headed are dropping away. Mm-hmm. And things that are supporting where we're headed are getting stronger. It's the same concept, just on a personal level.
What's so fascinating about what we're talking about right now is it's an ancient tradition. It's wisdom that has been here. And it's amazing to me how truth can just hang out for a little while, latent, seemingly. But there have been people throughout the ages to pass this wisdom down. And if we were talking to, a generation of, 18-year-olds, they're right on the mark with this. Most people get exactly what we're talking about. They come in and they have a little more command over it. It feels like the consciousness has shifted to such a degree that it's accessible. We get it. They know how to use technology too. I mean, they just know how to do these things. This learning curve of the soul's calling. We were talking a little bit about this right before we started, about hierarchy and structures falling away that put limitations on us. And all of a sudden the soul's calling looks like, 7 billion people. That's your path to God, or the infinite, or the divine feminine, or how do you, it's really important that people understand the balance, of masculine, feminine, but it's not this and this, it's all of this, right? How would you describe that with the work you do? How do you bring that into realization?
Yeah, it's true. And that's such a good point, Lisa, because we forget that we are both, that everything is both. We all have, everything has its own frequency, and each of those frequencies exist in all things, including us. So when we're talking about the feminine stream, as I call it, or frequency, we're talking about the part of us that's the passionate, creative, nurturing, compassionate heart aspect of ourselves. And when we're talking about the masculine stream or thread, we're talking about the more focused, organized, problem-solving, figure it out part. Both are really necessary to have the strongest outcome. Because if you're just a visionary and you never put it to paper or get any steps done towards that, nothing happens. And if you're just always focused and you can't visualize what it is you want, also it's not going to be what you want. So it's really the powerful combination of both aspects that is the strongest for everybody.
Yeah. Do you ever work with someone who doesn't know what they want?
Oh yeah, all the time.
They just know they don't want, but they can't see what's possible. I mean, there's so many tricky things. So you would use a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and
I would, but here's a point of clarification in my experience that I've learned, is that they do know what they want. They're just afraid to go for it, or afraid to trust that it can happen, and they don't want to be disappointed.
Beautiful. Wow.
Every time we start talking, it comes out. So they already know. There's just obstacles that have to be moved away so they can connect with it more.
That is such an encouraging and true statement. It's that soul's calling, it already knows. And it can look different. Like I'm enjoying catching up with you. It's been a couple years since we've gotten a chance to just sit and have long conversations. But there's this way, I'm looking at your book. I remember the last book you wrote, one of the things that stuck with me was the falling upward. Mm-hmm. Could you explain a little bit of what that was and what that book, and the name of the book, forgive me, it's
yeah, that book came out in 2013, I believe. It's called The 6 Sacred Gifts.
That's it.
And I actually address these 6 pieces of the spiritual journey, walking our life with spiritual purpose and realizing that our journey is a spiritual journey. Our life is a spiritual journey. that there's 6 common components of that for everybody, so that we understand them, because many people will put up obstacles when they run into these things thinking that there's a problem and there's really not. But that was the catalyst, that one statement. It was actually dropping up, and that was the catalyst for the whole book. And it actually came out of a dream that I had, where I was on this street and there was some sort of, I don't know, parade or something happening. And I just became aware that I needed to leave this place. It wasn't safe, and it wasn't going to support me in doing what I wanted or needed to do. And there were good people and bad people. You know, dreams are strange. Yeah. And I locked eyes with somebody on a float that I just knew was a good person. And he came down to me, and I asked him, like, how do I get out of here? Like, this is not good. I need to get out of here. And he said, you just drop up. And I'm like, what do you mean? And he just straightened out his body and shoop, like went right down through the ground. So I did the same thing. And we found ourselves on the same street, looking almost exactly the same, but this one was in color, whereas the one we left had been in black and white. And I was very aware that it was not like we had just dropped up, we hadn't dropped down. And so that concept just really intrigued me. And I sat with it. And that book was one of the things that came out of sitting with that concept of dropping up in terms of our soul's journey and our evolutionary process.
Yeah, it's a powerful book. I recommend anything you write to everybody should check it out.
Thank you.
But yeah, remember that. And it was so powerful because what you just said, you sat with it. You had to contemplate it. You allowed it to unravel itself for you, or just keep coming. I think that seems like you probably see this in your coaching practice too. It's where people, I don't want to say they miss the mark, but they miss the opportunity. They get this thing, and we could spend more time sitting with something in contemplation, practicing the presence of, and allowing it to unravel for us. Anything else you'd like to add? And where can we find you for coaching practices and your books?
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, before I tell you where, I would like to add that there is this process where we tend to skip over things that feel scary, uncertain. And that tends to be the feeling piece of things. And it's really by exploring the feeling piece of things that we get to our truth, our deepest truth. So I encourage people to really let themselves sit and be still. This is a basic yogic tenet too, because our minds just stay so busy and occupied. And until we really get into stillness within ourselves to connect with our highest self, our soul, being and body and purpose, then we do feel scattered. And this culture just really perpetuates that. So it's even more important that we get to stillness. So especially now, because in the yogic arena, they say we've moved out of the Piscean age, which was all about trying to find information. And now we're in the Aquarian age, which is actually applying all of that wisdom. So that's what we're learning to do. And we're sort of babies at it. We're learning how to truly live and integrate all this great spiritual wisdom at our fingertips into our reality. Yeah, and it's a big transition.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, this is very powerful work.
Lucky to have wise, powerful teachers on the planet like yourself.
It's such an honor. I have so many teachers that I'm just so grateful for, and I'm at this stage in my life in particular feeling really honored and grateful to be able to serve in that role for other people at times. So it's a real treat for me.
Thank you for joining us this morning, and tell us where we can find you.
Yeah, so you can find me at drcecizuniga.com. That's my website. I've got my books there. I've got all the information about the kind of work that I do there, and some fun downloads you can get to help you with some yoga and some meditation information, and just to feel better all the way around. So that would be the best place to find me.
Excellent.
And I'm also all over Facebook. I have a business page and a page that's for the Sorcerer's Legacy, which is the book that you held up. The new book is book 1 in that series. So there's a page on that series where I keep everything. Yep, that's the one. I'm so happy about that. So that's where they can find me. It's been a delight to be able to visit with you today.
Likewise. There was just a little slice to be continued.
Right.
Once again, we thank all of you for joining us this morning for Wisdom Wednesday and Wake Up with the Consciousness Cafe. And this evening at 7:00 p.m., tune into Soul Sessions. You can find it on our website, soulcallministries.org. And also we ask you and invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel, SoulCall Ministries. Like us and share us with your friends on Facebook and Instagram and all those other places. And until we see you next time, know that you are love.